Good afternoon, everyone. Now we're going to look at global warming. Here again, we're using the speculation persuasive pattern. So I've got 5 sections for this pattern. And you notice sometimes I'll call it a pyramid because I'm using this as a pyramid shape to help you visualize how this pattern is organized. Okay, number 1, I either present a trend, event, or phenomena. In this case, this is a trend / phenomena. So again, a trend is an increase or decrease over time. So here we have an increase of global warming. So that makes it a trend. But also it's become a phenomenon as well. Okay? So the number 1 is, again, I use 2 key statistics. So I can use the increase of air temperature. So the temperature has increased. Not much, but it's a steady increase and it's not decreasing. So that'd be 1 key statistic. The other key statistic is the rising sea levels or the ocean temperature actually getting warmer. And you can use examples of glaciers falling into the warmer waters. Okay? And that's pretty much all you need for this one. You don't need an illustration, but those 2 key statistics. Now, you have to be very careful with this topic because naturally, this looks very attractive because all you think, all I have to do is make a report, a scientific report. But remember, this is an argument. The first is an analysis, and then you're going to argue, okay, for drivers and long-term consequences. So here, be very careful. Do not overwhelm this number 1 with statistics. You're not expected to be an expert, but just take 2 key statistics. That's it, and maybe 1 brief description, and you're done. This is not an introduction. Do not give me an introduction. Do not go with the history, background. Do not do a pro-con list. This is not that. All you're doing is presenting the event, trend, or phenomena. In this case, you're presenting the trend of global warming. Okay? Now, number 2. This will actually, you'd be surprised, this will actually be a shorter section here. The sections, the drivers, the consequences, they're not equal. So, for example, you won't have 3 pages here and 3 pages here. Now, some trends, events, and phenomena, they'll be heavier on the driver and less on the long-term consequence. In this case, it'll be lighter on the key driver, but more substantial for the long-term consequences, which we'll come to. But here, all you're going to make it, so your bolded subtitle is human activity. And now you're going to make an argument that human activity, and you give examples of that, human activity, that drive global warming. That's it. So you notice here, the arrows go up. The arrows do not go across. Again, this is not a cause and effect writing pattern. The cause and effect pattern is good for paragraphs. I'm showing you an essay or a book pattern. Okay? You can write easy 5 pages, 20, 30, 100 pages using this pattern. This is not a cause and effect. Okay? So you're just going to make an argument that human activity drives global warming. Now here, number 3 is you're going to go from the phenomena trend, you're coming down, and then you're going out. Now again, be very careful. Do not just simply, if you identify a consequence, you've got to think about taking it 1 more step. Can I take it 1 more step? So now you're doing, what you need to do is think critically and look long term. Okay? You got to look, you're going to argue that, well, it's nothing proven yet, but my argument, my analysis I'm going to argue that these are the long-term consequences from these particular consequences. So, for example, you can take dead oceans, right? And you can just simply give me a report. There's a huge, several miles circle in certain parts of the ocean that's dead. There's nothing living. There's no fish. There's nothing. It's a dead ocean. And there are spots like that. So, okay, that's a consequence of global warming. but that's just a report. But can you take it one more step? So then you can talk about, oh, maybe species going extinct, or maybe you're going to have a devastated fishing industry in that area, which will then lead to what? You see? So you start to see there'll be vacuums left. So now you just take it one more step, and you no longer give me simple science report. You can also make an argument that certain species will become extinct, which is happening. Okay, you can look at species that have already been extinct, and then you can speculate these species will be extinct. But instead of just giving me a science report, you guys say, okay, what will be one more step? What will happen if this particular species become extinct? Will that change the chain? Will that change the predatory or the supportive nature? Will that species, were they instrumental in providing a nutrient for other species? See, so you got to take it one more step. You can also look at environmental racism. Many of you are familiar with that term. But so will this lead to environmental racism where say certain areas where there's maybe poor, black, brown people and more indigenous people, they'll just let that let that consequence exist? Will that be an example of environmental racism? Okay. So if you also look at rising sea levels, you can just give me a report. Hey, I mean, you've already given me a statistic maybe in this number 1 of rising sea levels, but then what will happen? Every home or any business on the coast, even a rise of 2 inches will have devastating impact. You already hear stories of homes slipping into the ocean. East Coast, West Coast. And then you combine the West Coast with the earthquake, and there you go. Or tourist destinations, or even in other areas, there's whole peoples that are at risk of just losing their sources of food. So, anyways, try to take it one more step. Okay. Also, this is very interesting. You can look at anti-immigrant shift. Okay? And you start to see that happen because when people are fighting for resources or access to clean water or access to certain resources as a result of global warming, then you start to see a shift in anti-immigrant policy, which becomes quite popular. In the United States, it's already quite popular. That's one of the strong calls that the Republican right wing might have, is this anti-immigrant push. Okay, and they call it illegal immigrant push. Now, in many cases, you also have civil unrest. So, civil unrest just in that nation will cause, it'll resonate out. So, what are some of the long-term consequences of civil unrest when people no longer have access to the ocean, or they can no longer fish, they can no longer farm because of their whole property their land is arid now. Well, we need the water. Well, we want the water over here. So what's going to happen? It will lead to war. So then you're going to argue it could lead to war. Okay. Then also you have possibly they call climate change refugees. So again, combined when you have a whole population that the land is no longer arable, can't farm, can't fish. What are they going to do? They're going to move. They're going to put pressure on another area. So again, that might lead to civil unrest, war, anti-immigrant. And then you start to see, okay, now I'm thinking it's a complex situation here. These are all connected, or not all of them, some of them are. So now you're going to make an argument and control what's the long-term consequence. You can also argue, of course, of wealth disparities, because people who have access to clean water, resources, they'll be able to survive longer. And then you start to see more segregation of entire populations. Okay, so you start to see already this will be short, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs max. Okay, but then here now you don't have to use all of them, but maybe use 2 or 3 of these and develop your long-term consequences. Okay, these are just some ideas you can use. Now the counter-argument section here, number 4, is again, all I need is just 2 paragraphs as before. So the first paragraph, I'm going to present an alternative explanation for global warming. In this case, you'll find a source that says, hey, it's natural. It's just natural evolution. Hey, that's the way the world works. You know, look back at history. Temperature doesn't stay static. It changes. So they're going to say, hey, it's natural. Don't worry about it. So then you counter it. Now, this is kind of tricky. You might have to counter it with a source that says, no, no, no. Human activity shows that it's not natural. Okay? But then try to take a source that you don't repeat yourself. Another one you say is hoax. And many people say, yeah, it's just a hoax. It's just the left. They're just trying to raise, it's all like, it's just a hoax. It's not really real. So then you counter and says, of course, it's not a hoax. It's very real. Okay, so you counter with that. Now, number 5 is your call to action, of course, right? So your calls to action, again, you'll find sources. So if you just have 3 or 4 sources, you can say we can go vegan. There's a source that says if everyone in the United States eats 1 vegetarian meal a week, we can cut greenhouse emissions by a certain percentage. Of course, you can always argue for alternative energy sources, right? Then you can say we can support other nations because you can argue that we're all connected. We're all interconnected. So we can't just say, hey, pull up the wall, close out our nation and just protect our nation and then the heck with everyone else. Because global warming impacts everybody on the planet. Okay? So here you can say, no, 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 we have to get out of this narcissistic approach and isolation, and we have to support other nations as well. Because, it's the right thing to do, but also that we're all connected. We all have common ground here. Okay? So you start to see this can be an exciting report for you. But remember, you got to think long-term. Find 2 or 3 long-term consequences. You'll be good. Need 1 counter-argument. And again, you use the question mark. It's just simply to demarcate that this is the counter-argument. That's all. It's not like you don't frame it in a way of a question. It's just to show that this is a counter-argument. That's all. And again, you bold the subtitles for all sections except the number 1. And you're good. So good luck if you take this topic. Thank you.